Hey everyone, welcome back to the HQ. So today I'm diving into the controversy surrounding a new Forbes article about The Acolyte that was written by a journalist by the name of Paul Tessie. And as you all know, The Acolyte has not been well received by most fans, and it currently sits at a 15% audience score on Rotten Tomatoes. Absolutely terrible. And in his article, Paul Tessie argues that the hostility towards the show is embarrassing for the fans. He suggests that the show's story isn't necessarily to blame, but rather the fans' overly harsh reactions. In his article, he says the following: while Star Wars has had many controversies in the Disney era, viewers have now mobilized a fleet of TIE bombers to obliterate user scores of The Acolyte wherever possible, namely on Rotten Tomatoes and IMDb. I previously reported that this started up right at release as The Acolyte quickly became the lowest audience-rated Star Wars project besides the infamous holiday special. Now, its former 33% score has dipped below the special's 20% score and is all the way down to 15%. He then goes on to say, at a certain point, this is just absurd, and it says a lot more about the viewers than it does the quality of the show itself, which has barely even gotten started, now just 3 episodes in. No, I am not going to entertain a debate that this is not review bombing. A 15% score is barely more than a third of the last most controversial Disney Star Wars project, The Last Jedi. Nothing is even close except the holiday special. End quote. So while Tessie believes the story isn't the main issue, we can't ignore that many fans genuinely think it is. For many, The Acolyte does not live up to their expectations of what a Star Wars story should be. The plot, character development, and the overall execution is falling short for those who hold the franchise dear to their hearts. Now, granted, some fans actually are enjoying the show so far, and we are only about halfway through the series, but it's very clear that the majority of fans appear to feel otherwise about these first few episodes. Now, let's take a look at this comment by Reyes5480 that was posted on yesterday's video about this. He said, as Henry Cavill rightly said, fans aren't toxic, they are passionate, and they have the right to be passionate. Criticizing something is not being toxic, it is simply respecting yourself enough to want a better product. It is only toxic if you threaten or attack the people working on the product and not the product itself. End quote. And I thought this comment was so well said, because what's happening a lot of times is the quote-unquote toxic fan base is being blamed rather than looking at the actual core problem, and that is Disney and how they communicate with fans and how, according to many fans, they write their shows. Now, I will say this, as a twin, I actually do gravitate towards the twin part of this story, but in my opinion, there's a lot of really cringy moments in the show, especially in episode 3, where they all start singing and chanting. You know the part I'm talking about. It was just a very cringe moment, and it really took me out of the show on that particular part. And this next part of the argument from Forbes journalist Paul Tessie is even more hilarious. He shows a chart of The Acolyte reviews, compared it to other shows, and says the following about it. He says, there's also how fast this happened. Of course, he's referring to just how fast people have review bombed The Acolyte. He then goes on to say, for instance, Ahsoka only has 5,000 reviews in on Rotten Tomatoes after being out for months, while The Acolyte has aired 3 episodes in 2 weeks and has 10,000 reviews in. The last season of The Mandalorian only has 2,500 reviews in, and The Beloved Andor 5,000 reviews total years later. End quote. So his argument is just because The Acolyte is getting review bombed so fast compared to other shows, the reviews must not be valid. Well, in my opinion, you have to look at the reason why fans are review bombing the show to begin with. For fans to be driven to review bomb a show so quickly, there has to be a specific reason this is happening, and it looks like the reason is because fans want their voices to be heard, and they really do not like what Disney is doing with Star Wars currently. Also, I like to draw comparisons to other shows like Fallout, which has a talented female lead, by the way, and fans absolutely love and adore the first season of the show, giving it an 89% audience score, so clearly something is going wrong with Star Wars currently. And we also cannot forget how The Acolyte has handled the Force by renaming it to The Thread. We got to remember that Star Wars fans are deeply invested in the established canon, especially the Force, and if The Acolyte continues to diverge too much from the lore that the fans have grown to love, it's no surprise that they would react so negatively in this way. Fans expect new upcoming content to respect and build upon the rich history of the Star Wars universe, not undermine it. And this was a huge risk taken by Leslie Headland by changing the name of the Force in the show in this way. And so far from these initial first couple of episodes, it looks like it has backfired quite badly. And I also got to highlight this comment by PTYT8322. They posted this yesterday on yesterday's video, and they said, Master Soul is actually really cool, and I feel bad for the actor because apparently he learned English just for this role, and he really loved Star Wars. So it sucks his first part in a Star Wars show happens to be a show with a bunch of hate. I do understand the hate and people's concerns. Me, myself, I don't absolutely hate the show, but I see the issues with it, and I'll finish the show just to see the direction it goes in, even if I don't 100% like it. End quote. And again, as I mentioned before, I do actually like some parts of the show, but there are so many cringe moments that take me out of the experience, and I also think of what else could they have done with this show, especially since it's kind of during ancient times of Star Wars and well before, the Clone Wars, and there was so much more opportunity here, in my opinion. Now, of course, we are about halfway through the series, and it's going to be interesting to see if some fans actually like the later half of the show. But from what I'm seeing so far, I don't know if that's going to happen. Also, communication from Lucasfilm before the show's release has played a major role in the show's early downfall, in my opinion. Fans felt misled or ignored during the promotional phase of the show, and this has easily caused fans to feel frustrated and angry well before it premiered. I did a whole video on this yesterday if you want to check it out. And on top of that, Kathleen Kennedy's constant focus on what she calls the toxic part of the male fan base has worn out fans, including myself. We don't want to keep on hearing about this. Instead, we fans just want a good Star Wars story. We want entertainment. We want fun. We want really good storytelling. Anyways, what do you think about all of this? What do you think about the Forbes journalists attacking Star Wars fans, blaming them for The Acolyte? And how do you feel about The Acolyte story so far? Do you think the series could have a turnaround in the later half of the episodes? Do you think that's even possible? Let me know in the comments down below, and I will see you all in the next video, and may the Force be with you always.